Forgiveness isn't a clean break. It's not a line you cross and suddenly you're free. It's a journey you go on, uneven, repetitive, sometimes frustrating, where you loosen your grip on the pain so the pain loosens its grip on you. And here's the part most people get wrong. Forgiveness isn't about excusing harm or giving someone a free pass. It's about you not letting their choices run your life. We're told to just forgive and move on, like it's a switch. In real life, it happens in layers. First, the shock, replaying the moment, looking for a version where it didn't happen. Then anger, the fight for meaning, the urge for justice. Then the quiet distance. You stop talking about it, but the tension still lives under your skin. Forgiveness doesn't skip those stages. It moves through them at the pace your nervous system can tolerate. And forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. You can forgive and still decide not to let someone back in. You can forgive and still hold boundaries. You can forgive and still say, I don't trust you. Trust is rebuilt by consistent behavior. Forgiveness is about your relationship to the wound. If they're still doing the thing that hurt you, you don't owe access just because you're working on letting go. Think about how this plays out with a partner. Maybe they broke a promise and you're stuck between the memory of who they were and the reality of what they did. Forgiveness here might be the choice to stop rehearsing the betrayal every night, not to protect them, but to protect your peace. Whether you stay or leave depends on repair. Do words turn into patterns, or do patterns repeat the harm? If it's repair, trust may slowly grow again. If it's repeat, forgiveness may simply mean releasing the anger while you release the relationship. With family, it's trickier. We're taught that blood demands unconditional access. It doesn't. You can let go of bitterness and still create space. That might look like shorter visits, fewer topics, no more jokes at your expense. It might sound like, I'm not available for conversations where I'm being belittled. If that continues, I'll end the call. That's not cruelty. That's care for yourself. With friends, forgiveness often meets ambiguity. No explosion, just distance. Maybe there was a moment you needed them and they didn't show. Maybe their values shifted away from yours. Forgiveness here might be remembering the good without demanding a reunion. It's saying, that chapter mattered, while not forcing a sequel you don't actually want. The hardest part is forgiving yourself. The mind loves to loop. If I'd done X, I wouldn't have hurt them. If I'd noticed sooner, I wouldn't be here. Self-forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't happen. It's letting accountability do its job without letting shame become your personality. You can tell the truth about what you did and still choose to be someone you respect now. Repair what you can, learn what you must. Stop using the past as proof you don't deserve a future. So how do you move through forgiveness without faking it? Start by naming the injury in plain language. You lied to me about where you were and I felt disposable. You mocked something vulnerable and I felt unsafe with you. When you can name it, you can work with it. Next, separate forgiveness from access. You might say, I'm working on releasing this, but contact will be limited. Or, I'm choosing my peace even if we're not in each other's lives. That clarity stops you from performing forgiveness to get quick harmony you'll pay for later. If you never get an apology, your work is still possible. Closure is something you create when the other person won't or can't give it. Sometimes that looks like a letter you don't send, where you write what happened, what it cost you, and what you're choosing now. Sometimes it means shifting the question from, why did they do this, to, what do I want to feel responsible for now? One question keeps you in their story, the other returns you to yours. When the emotion spikes again, and it will, remember that feeling isn't failure. It's a layer surfacing to be processed. You can pause a conversation before you lash out. You can take space before replying. You can notice the body cue, tight chest, quick breath, clenched jaw, and choose not to build a new story around it. Your goal isn't to never feel pain. It's to stop letting pain pilot the rest of your life. If you decide to continue the relationship, forgiveness needs scaffolding. Small, measurable requests, timelines, check-ins that look at behavior, not promises. If this happens again, here's what I'll do. Isn't a threat, it's a boundary you can keep even if they don't keep theirs. If you decide to leave, forgiveness becomes a practice of not recruiting anger to justify your exit. You don't need to turn someone into a villain to choose yourself. You can step away clean. There's also partial forgiveness. Maybe you can release 30% now and 70% later. Maybe you can let go of the humiliation but still feel the sadness. That counts. You're not a worse person because your healing arrives in installments. Often, the last bit to release is the fantasy of what should have happened. The apology you deserved, the version of them that never arrived, the version of you that would have seen it coming. When that fantasy dissolves, peace feels less like a goal and more like gravity. If you're stuck, try this reframe. Forgiveness is not a gift to the other person. It's a decision about how much of your inner home they are allowed to occupy. You're changing the lease terms. You're moving your energy back into rooms where your life is happening now. That could look like new routines, different friends, time away from reminders. It could mean replacing "how could they" with "how do I want to feel today?" Small, unglamorous choices, repeated, are how forgiveness becomes real. And if you're not ready, say so. I'm not at forgiveness yet, and I won't be rushed. Pressure creates performance, not peace. Anyone who requires instant absolution is asking you to carry their discomfort. You don't have to. What about justice? Forgiveness doesn't cancel accountability. If harm requires consequences, you can pursue them and still refuse to hate yourself into the ground. Forgiveness and accountability are not opposites. They're two rails that allow you to move forward without denying reality. Here's a simple way to hold it. Forgiveness is your relationship to the past. Boundaries are your relationship to the future. One releases the story of what happened. The other protects what happens next. You're allowed to have both. What to tell yourself instead? I'm not excusing what happened. I'm choosing not to live there. I can forgive at my pace and still keep my boundaries. I don't owe access to the person who hurt me. I can be a good person who was hurt and still build a life that isn't organized around that hurt. You've been watching The Soft Skills. Like and subscribe for clarity without the chaos.